Where is he?
Down by the creek, walking on water. No, make no mistake. It's not revenge he's after. It's a reckoning. I'm your huckleberry.
What they actually want is plum deals, corruption, to continue, to get rich, to be able to put their wives on boards or make them ambassadors to this or that. They wish to betray our movement and President Trump. And I am very glad that Daddy is going up to the Capitol with a beat stick and will hopefully knock him in the line. Apparently, we've done so much work. There's word right now that John Thune may drop out. We've done such good work on this. So we'll see. We'll keep the pressure up. Do not allow these scum in your government, or what the glory that is the incredible, the universe that is now currently being built of our dreams is at risk. Here we go. New from Politico this morning. Many in government are worried about Trump's return. At DOJ, they're terrified. Now, a reminder, John Thune and John Cornyn voted to fund every single illegal FBI operation on Christians, on MAGA, on pro-lifers. John Thune and John Cornyn gave unlimited resources to Christopher Wray to torture our movement. They love the deep state. John Thune and John Cornyn are subservient to their puppet masters who hate Donald Trump. We mustn't allow them to win, or this is in jeopardy. This is the best article of the day. Okay, here we go. A collective sense of dread has taken hold at the Department of Justice, which drew Donald Trump's rage like no other in the federal government during his campaign. Some career attorneys at DOJ are already heading for the exits. Rather than sticking around to find out whether the threats from Trump and his allies are real, they are. I'm your huckleberry. They are. They are real. Like, do you not think we booked, like, Mike Davis has been on the show, like, countless hours. Do you not understand? They are real. Jenna Griswold's about to go to jail in Colorado. And you've done far worse. To everyone I've talked to, according to one DOJ attorney, says most lawyers are losing their minds. Oh, torture demons. Torturing demons is exciting. It's fun. Ladies and gentlemen, torture the demons. The fear is that career leadership and career employees everywhere are either going to leave or they're going to be driven out. Should be fired on day one. Apparently, Christopher Wray is going to be fired on day one. I have only seen that in tacit reporting. President Trump hasn't said Christopher Wray is going to be fired on day one. Christopher Wray needs to be fired on day one. Alarm over Trump's return is widespread throughout the federal bureaucracy, perhaps most acute at the DOJ, the center of major controversies in his first term. Most of the department's 15, holy smokes, that's how many people work at the DOJ? 115,000 employees. Why are there 115,000 employees at the DOJ? Were around for those controversies. Critics believe that the Trump White House meddled in some of the department's high-profile prosecutions. Oh, really? That's what they're worried about. Now they're worried about the White House meddling. When we know that they met with the Biden Justice Department, they were sleeping together. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were banging each other, texting each other about how much they hate Trump and how they're going to stop Trump's election. And this Mueling article says they're worried about Trump meddling in justice. Fire them all. Start over. Fire them all. The rot goes so deep. Department veterans say that those events pale in comparison to what they expect Trump when Trump gets a second chance to remake the DOJ. Oh yeah, baby. They also know that Trump's anger at the department has only deepened in the past 4 years. I wonder why. Luckily, the article actually says so. Wow, first piece of honest journalism I've read today. as it launched 2 unprecedented criminal prosecutions against him. Oh, really? So they broke the law. They went after a president. They raided his house. And now that guy's coming for vengeance. And they're upset. They're claiming to be the victims. It's not how it works, sweetheart. The wages of sin. Many federal employees are terrified that will be replaced with partisan loyalists. Oh, really? What is Lisa Monaco? What is Merrick Garland? What are all these Obama apparatchiks that have literally that have not left their offices in 16 years? Not just because our jobs are on the line, but because we know that our democracy is... It's so good. This quote is so good. Our democracy and country depend on a government supported by merit-based apolitical civil service. Oh, man. Stacey Young, who's a trial attorney in Justice Department Civil Rights Division, she's the one who said this quote. First person who should be fired. Stacey Young. First one. I'll start making a list. We'll make a list. First person to get into the unemployment breadlines. Stacey Young. Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Grotesque. What does she say? Let's just read the final quote here. We've all seen this movie before, and it's going to be worse, says a former DOJ official. It will be worse. It's just a question of how much worse it's gonna be. Here you go, guys. I got a salt shaker for you. You can just cry into it. I'll take the top off. So much salt, I can't capture it all. Freaking disaster. What glorious things will come of the Trump DOJ and their absolute grotesque abuse of power in the Biden regime. These people are scared, and they're scared for a reason. I always say this: like, if a cop stops you and you're committing a crime, you're a murderer. Okay, you have a body in your trunk. All right, it's like a mafia movie. You got a body in the trunk. Cop pulls you over on the interstate. And you're behaving extremely erratically. You're sweating. You're going like this on the steering wheel. You're looking up at the cop. You know there's a body in the trunk. And then eventually when the cop goes back to his car to grab the paperwork, you run away, right? Sprint into the woods. That's how these people are behaving. They're the criminals. If you are upstanding and you followed the rules and you've played it by the books, you don't have to behave this way. You don't mule and bitch to Politico. Oh no, Trump's coming for us. Ah. Look at the words they use here. Terrified, shaking with fear, seething with rage. Those are the words to describe criminals who've been caught. Okay? Just human nature. Just human nature. So it's a glorious moment right now. And it gets better. As we always say on this program, it always gets better. Here we go. Breaking news. Juan Merchan has delayed Donald Trump's conviction in New York for the bullshit charges that were brought for bookkeeping errors. Yeah, maybe don't persecute. This won the presidency for Trump more than almost anything. Is people seeing this? People watching this abomination happen. Am I wrong? Come on, chat. What man intends for evil, God intends for good. And we were there through it all. We were live so many hours, so many countless hours, bringing you these trials, putting, Alina Habba was on our program every single day. Chat, I know you remember that. We rocked with it. We didn't shy away. We never once said, well, no, it's time for Trump to drop out, like John Thune or John Cornyn did. There are multiple tweets up right now where John Thune and Cornyn calling for Trump to drop out because of various scandals throughout political career, scandals that were utterly manufactured. There it is. Yeah, that's right. Look at this. Your next Senate leader, Donald Trump should withdraw, and Mike Pence should be our nominee immediately. That's the guy? That's the guy who Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley are going to vote for? Really? Really? Despicable. Despicable. John Cornyn has plenty of those as well. It's the January 6th stuff that gets me. But the January 6th stuff is an extension of what happened with President Trump, of course, which is simply lawfare against innocent Americans. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Merchan has now said, hold up, wait a minute. Something ain't right. Mr. Big Boy, with his little gavel in his falling to pieces, shabby, literally collapsing courtroom. We saw photos of it. It's amazing. Like Eric Trump came on and like showed us photos of what this all looked like. They brought Donald Trump into like a dungeon, like in a medieval castle, to humiliate him and degrade him, and then to charge him with 34 felony accounts. That judge now is singing a different tune, isn't he? Here we go.
It is 10 a.m. in New York City, and we've got a ruling based on the Associated Press saying this a moment ago. The judge has delayed a ruling on whether or not to dismiss President-elect Donald Trump's criminal conviction. These are 34 counts that came in at the end of May 30th. And the former president's been fighting it ever since. And the judge is going to sentence him prior to the election, then delayed it given the election itself. And so this is the ruling here. Just reading from the AP. A New York State judge has paused proceedings in the already decided criminal case on charges stemming from the hush money paid to a porn star. All right. The document reads, the judge had been set to decide by today whether or not the conviction could be vacated due to the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court midsummer back in July on presidential immunity. Trump had also been scheduled to be sentenced on November 26th. So this now is a whole new ball of wax.
Ooh, baby. Come on, baby. This is going to be very, very exciting to see what happens. And most importantly, to see the investigations into Juan Merchan. As we have reported multiple times on this program, Juan Merchan is committing illegal acts. There are rules in New York. He has to recuse himself. You have to recuse yourself. We have the receipts. We have the documents. We have the paperwork. Juan Merchan's daughter is a blue anon sociopath who fundraises hundreds of millions of dollars off locking up Trump. Now, I got daughters. You got daughters? You got kids? What are you going to get them for Christmas? You want to make them happy? This is Juan Merchan making his daughter happy, making his family filthy rich. Merchan should be the one on trial here. Okay? Period. Flatly. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited to be joined right now by the great Viva Frei, who is, of course, a legal expert and just sharp as a tack on these things, and is on the attack, actually, when it comes to left-wing lawfare. One of the best. Ladies and gentlemen, Viva joins the show live. Here we go. Oh, Viva doing the hair. Uh-oh. Viva, we got a mic problem. We got a mic problem, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to let Viva fix the mic. We're going to pop on over here to catch it. Here we go. Viva, we got you?
I hope so.
There you go, brother. Okay, fantastic. What's going on, homie?
Benny, I'm trying to read the news and make sense of it. Breaking Merchan. I predicted Merchan was going to vacate the verdict because you can't just say, I'm going to ignore the immunity ruling. And you can't try to craft the verdict around the Supreme Court ruling. It needs to be determined what elements Trump could even be prosecuted for, what elements of evidence could even be adduced given the immunity ruling. And you don't get to say, you adduced evidence, and now I'm going to say, well, it's in violation of the Supreme Court ruling, but it was irrelevant, which is why it was adduced as evidence. I predicted it. He's going to vacate the entire conviction. I stand by that. But at the very least, it looks like it's leaning in the direction of he's not sentencing Trump to jail on November 26th if he does anything on November 26th.
How could they possibly do that? Is of course, not like the federal law is superior to state law. And there's clearly no way that they could ever get that over the line. But that's clearly what they wanted to do, right? This election result was whether President Trump spent the rest of his life in prison or died in jail. That's what their goal was it not?
I think it was. I think if Trump had been not elected, it would have been a lot easier to go ape poopy crazy on him. The fact that he was not only elected, but in a landslide popular vote, clear mandate, their hands are tied. Their hands were tied regardless. So whether or not they would have gone crazy had he not been elected, they've got to go law-abiding now that he has been elected, because federally, they're going to drop all of those cases. Jack Smith is already talking about winding it up. RICO was never going to get anywhere on its own weaknesses. But Merchan was always going to vacate this, I think, based on the Supreme Court ruling, because it's not something you can go back and just parse out what elements violated the Supreme Court immunity ruling and what didn't, what affected the jury, what didn't. Go back and retry it. If anybody is stupid enough to go back and retry this case, that what's his name? Alvin Bragg was not stupid enough to try in the first place, but got pressured into prosecuting. Yes. So it's good.
So
news.
What happens with Fani Willis, one of our favorites?
Well,
what are your favorites? What are your besties, Viva?
Dude, I mean, there have been some sagas that you'll always remember, like the Rittenhouse trial, the Johnny Depp trial. For me, it was the Michael Flynn judicial persecution. That was my, heavy red pilling. I still predict that Fani Willis is going to get disqualified, her entire office, on appeal. I forget the name of the lower court judge, but he didn't have the cojones to do it for political reasons. There was an election going on at the time. I think she gets booted on appeal, and nobody's taking that case up ever again, because, as I said in back when they issued it, it was judicial dog crap of an indictment. It was literally indicting Trump for, the allegations were, find whatever the lawful way to do it is. That's what they were indicting him for RICO criminal conspiracy. So I always said that it was garbage from the beginning. We had no idea about the level of the corruption. I think an appeals court out of Georgia kicks Fani's office from the case, and nobody ever picks it up again.
Kicks her in the fanny?
Gonna send her Fani to the road, but it's she's as corrupt as the day is long. The only problem is she just got reelected.
I think what you're looking for is give her a hard spanking, I think is actually what
I have made those a judicial spanking. That's what I'm a married man, Benny.
There's too much to talk about, but let's move quickly over to Colorado. So now the Secretary of State of Colorado, who you have some personal beef with and who you torched the Colorado Supreme Court when they ripped Trump off the ballot. You've been following Jen Griswold and the leaking of all of the key cards and passwords to get into their voting systems. How could anybody trust the results in Colorado, which swung shockingly blue when the entire rest of the country went red? Now she's under investigation. What should happen there, Viva?
Well, she should be fired and prosecuted in that order. Look, Colorado probably was never going red this time around, any more than the last time. It's like once you go blue, you're done through. Or there's a rhyme in there somewhere. But it's grotesque, whether or not it's incompetence or corruption. Although, as Bongino says, layered incompetence is corruption or is intent. You cannot allow for this to happen. People go to jail for less, depending on whether they start their name with an R or a D. Tina Peters is in jail for less than this now. 9 years for a 69-year-old Gold Star mother with no criminal record for a first-time offense. And Jenna Griswold wants to lay it on some lower level staff and say, well, it was her fault that she accidentally published whatever with a tab of only 1/3 of the passwords. Don't worry, they couldn't access private information. It's not incompetence. It's outright corruption. It highlights a number of the problems with the systems they have in play for election. It should be paper, and you don't have these problems. But she should go to jail. She should have gone to jail for election interference for what she did with Trump. And she's an overall nutcase. But this is just hard evidence. They are beyond correction, beyond redemption, corrupt. Get out and investigate and send to jail if necessary.
So we're zooming all around the country, Viva. Let's say, since we're on the West Coast, let's just do a real trip over to California. California Democrats got repudiated on a state level. California swung hard red for that state. Trump won plus 40% in California. The state effectively turned red if you're looking at a county by county map. And many people are saying, hold up. The reason why the blue areas were able to succeed so strongly is because there is zero voter ID in California. This is a question that I've had and we've had various people weigh in here. What are the grounds for the federal government? And that's a great map of California. Pop that up so people can see. And if you layer it with 2020, it's incredible, the dominance of President Trump in this election. This is a mandate People want voter ID. The public want it. What is the process to get it federally?
I see. This is where I couldn't really venture into this question. I'm a mere Quebec Canadian attorney, but the states determine their election processes. But at some point, an entire country can be disenfranchised because of the state rules that allow for no voter ID or that outlaw voter ID. So I don't know what would need to be done in order to have some sort of uniform federal voter ID requirement. But it's a no-brainer. It's not just a no-brainer. I did an interview with the other day. It's a no-brainer that there is no argument for not having voter ID except for the fact that you want to be able to falsify, fraudulently fortify elections, period. Yes. The racism argument is racism. You say, oh, black people can't find the DMV or can't get voter ID. Well, then it's racist to ask them for ID when they want to buy alcohol. And then you say, well, buying alcohol is not a constitutional right. Voting is. Well, there's an argument that it's not actually in the Constitution regardless. But then, so are you saying then no voter ID to buy guns, like under exercising your Second Amendment rights? These idiots have not thought it through because they don't want to. It's a racist argument to say no voter ID laws because requiring voter ID disenfranchises minorities. But you see what happens in California, how hard you have to struggle. And then even still, from what I understand, like the local races are not reflecting the broader trend. And then you might ask yourself why that happens when they're still counting votes 30 days or up to 30 days later.
Yeah, that's precisely correct. And we see these strange maps out of Wisconsin, these ballot dumps at 3 a.m. that flip Senate seats, right? We saw the same thing with Kerry Lake in Arizona. Yeah. I believe it's time for a federal crackdown on this. I believe it's time for the federal government to say, wait a second, this is a federal election. We have jurisdiction here.
It is. Look, they made the argument. You can't allow states to willy-nilly disqualify a president on the basis of a 14th Amendment third paragraph because one state can disenfranchise all of America if they so do. So the bottom line, I don't know what mechanism there would have to be. And I'm going to ask Robert Barnes, and we'll talk about it most certainly at our next show. But audit all of it. The Democrats are running around screaming that Trump stole 2024. Audit 2024, but audit 2020 at the same time. And you may not like what you find, Dems.
That's right. Can you explain this to me?
Is this real?
That's real. This is Wisconsin. This is Kamala and Trump in Wisconsin. You can see what the game was. 3:30 a.m. 3:30 a.m. is right there.
I had on my channel Mark Robert, America's Untold Stories. He's a guy he's a genius as well when it comes to politics, pop culture, explaining how the ballot harvesting works and how it goes back to LBJ and how they find ballots in order to keep a lead that they have or in order to beat the lead that they know they need to beat. And you cannot have counting going on for days, weeks, and a month in California because that is, I don't even want to say third world level politics because third world government politics because it's almost insulting. It's corruption, pure and simple, period. And so what we saw in Arizona, we saw it in Wisconsin, we saw it in Pennsylvania to some extent. They couldn't find enough votes for the popular vote, but they sure as heck could for the closer races. The bottom line, it's corruption. Audit it. Find out what the hell is going on and put people in jail for bona fide election fraud, which I think we now definitively can conclude occurred in 2020. You don't lose 10 million votes and say, oh, people were just not interested in voting, especially now that the final numbers are in and Trump has more in 2024 than he had in 2020. So one doesn't continue the upward trajectory and another would have a spike and then disappear 10 million votes.
So that's a mandate, Viva, what you just described there, and it's a mandate to clean house in Washington, D.C. We talked through this Politico article right before you popped on, and here we go. They're terrified of the DOJ. They're so worried. I think the adjectives used in this article, it has me singing songs on a Sunday morning. They say they're shaking with rage. They're fearful and salty. And that people are losing their mind. First paragraph, people are losing their mind. Lawyers are losing their minds at the DOJ.
First of all, they never had minds to begin with. And this is so far. Hey, guys, you guys are nervous? Resign. Like, if I'm Biden and I want to make these people calm down a little bit, look, they'll be out of a job anyhow come January 20th. Yeah. If I'm Biden, I pardon Hunter, I pardon myself, I pardon Trump as an act of unification, and I pardon all of these federal agents, federal employees who are nervous about persecution under Trump. Give them a blanket, a pardon in advance, and they be on their ways, and the house will clean itself. But they're terrified because they know what they've been doing for the last however many decades. Michael Flynn knew what they were doing. And there's a reason why they went after the people they did with the ferociousness that they did. And now Trump is back in with a mandate. And hopefully he puts together the proper team to open up the closets, bring out the skeletons, and put the people in jail who need to be put in jail. After a fair trial, of course. So
last question here, Viva, but I think it's an important one. The process of firing a federal employee, they've written the system in order to protect themselves, obviously, right? And so there's going to be this internal resistance and friction against the firing of these career federal employees. How do you get it done? I know Vivek has said, why don't we just let's just go to the social security numbers and say every social security number that ends in these numbers, you're gone, right? Like, there have been many people speculating about how to do it. What's the best way to begin cleaning house? Because you can already hear it, right? As Elon talks about getting rid of these government agencies. That's illegal. You can't do that. We'll challenge you in court.
So I'm picking the bigger brain of Robert Barnes. Cut funding. Defund these entities, and they won't have the salaries to pay the bloated staff that they already have. So you may not be able to fire them and come and say, you're fired. Cut the funding. They are already operating on exceedingly high budgets, wasting it left and right. Cut it, and it will eliminate itself. We're going to find out the government is probably a lot like not Tesla, a lot like Twitter, and it can operate probably more efficiently with 25% of the staff. So get in there with your Department of Governmental Efficiency, DOJ, defund some of these entities that don't need them. You want to defund the police? No, defund the FBI, defund the CIA, and make them do more with less, not less with more, as they've been doing.
Yes, precisely. The black box of federal funding. We don't even get to know how much they spend. It's a black box. Isn't that great?
When the Pentagon cannot account,
what a country!
When they can't pass an audit and the Pentagon can't account for trillions of dollars, you have too much money to play with in the first place. When your money's tight, you know where you're spending it, and if you're not knowing where you're spending taxpayer dollars, it's because you got too much of it.
Everybody head on over. You know where to follow Viva. Follow his channel as well. 680,000 followers. Viva, on your way to 1 million, brother. On your way to 1 million, get on in there. One of the best out there. Godspeed.
Thank you very much, Benny. Have a good one.